mighty crew. We're going to go ahead and get started. Go ahead and definitely grab food if you have not. There's plenty for everyone here, and we'll try to make it available for folks to be able to take a to-go box and everything. We don't want it to go to waste, of course. But I'm Austin Wagner, Deputy Chief of Staff for Mayor Andre Dickens, here representing the mayor in his office. I appreciate all of you coming and participating in this process as we continue the evolution and iteration of community access media and getting us into this next phase, and hopefully something that will last, generations to come, something we can be proud of in the city that honors the legacy and continues moving forward. You're going to hear from me the absolute least out of everyone tonight, so I'm going to pass it over and have the pleasure of welcoming Councilmember Bond, who wanted to make sure that his constituents had an opportunity to hear from all of us in the future of community access. So I wanted to give the floor to him if he had a few words to say to everyone. Councilmember?
Thank you very much. I want to say good evening to everybody. Good evening. I know there are people out there. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Oh, that's much better, much better. Just want to say I do want to bring greetings. I'm very, very excited to be partnering with the mayor's office on this initiative. I come out of a background of public access television. Once upon a time when my uncle James Bond was on the Atlanta City Council in the 70s, he actually was the author of the legislation that created the cable franchise that created People TV back in the day. And he had a very famous show called, now I'm drawing a blank, I think it was the American Music Show. And you can Google it and see the episodes. And he had everyone on that show out of his basement over there at 361 Westview Drive, right next door to Morehouse College. Everyone from then Vice President George Bush to Jay Leno, all these different stars that would come through Atlanta, all on public access. And he actually discovered a tremendous star that's making his way around the internet, and well, I don't want to say internet, but I don't know if anybody's ever heard of RuPaul. Anybody heard of RuPaul? Well, one night when they were broadcasting from his basement, the American Music Show, RuPaul was, I think, a junior at Booker T. Washington High School, saw them on television, called into the show, and they told him where they were, and then he showed up, knocked on the door, walked onto the show, and became a regular on the show. So having public access, having community access to media is a powerful tool for empowerment for a community. Not only can those who are producers and creators create ongoing arts and stories and dramatizations that affect the public, but as I've given in this example, you can launch people's careers and you don't know where they'll end up or how much they will have a positive effect on the surrounding community. And so with that, I just wanted to say good evening. I'm looking forward to a very vibrant discussion led by Dr. Samama, who of course was one of the pioneers of People TV back in the 80s. I actually got my producer's, I don't want to say license, but I guess my qualification certificate way back, I think it was 1985, when People TV was located next door to what is now the Andrew and Walter Family YMCA on Campbellton Road in the old Pizza Hut. It had been converted into the studio and actually produced a couple of shows myself. So very, very excited to be here with everybody. And of course, I got up early this morning and cooked all this food. So don't let it go to waste. I sweat, tears over a stove all this morning. So please help yourself. I think they're going to get some to-go plates if you want to take some home with you. And of course, if you can text or call, please share that we're here for the next hour and a half so we can bring more people in so we can have the discussion. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to take my seat now, but thank you very much, and it's good to see all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember, and thank you for the hard work over the food. We appreciate it. So I'm going to bring up the person who's going to be speaking to us tonight, and has been helping to guide and lead our work on this. As the Councilmember mentioned, Dr. Jabari Samama was one of the founders of Public Access TV here in the city, so only served fit to bring him back into the administration has partnered with him to come in and lead this process and this committee to, like we said, try to get us to the next phase of what community access is, and something we can leave behind as a legacy for the next generation that honors what we've had in the past. So I'll bring up Dr. Jabari Samama, who will give a presentation and guide us for the evening.
Hello, everyone. How are you? Let's see if we can get okay. And I'm just going to go forward for a minute. See if it goes forward. You can go back. Okay, looks like it's working. Thank you all for coming out tonight. We've done a series of these community conversations about community access media. And sometimes we have 100 people there, and sometimes we have 10. But it doesn't matter to us whether we're speaking to hundreds of people or whether we're speaking to 10 or 15 or 20 people. The good thing about tonight, it looks like we're going to have a small enough group where we can have a good dialogue. That's what we really want to have, good engagement and good conversation with the community. A couple of people I just want to acknowledge before I go any further. Can you hear me okay, or do I need to stand behind my mic? Am I speaking loud enough where you can hear me? Or I can take the mic and I can also walk a little bit with it too. But the mayor's chief communication officer is here with us as well, so I just want to acknowledge Allison Fouché. She does a great job, and her staff is seated at the table with her. And then we have a couple members of the Mayor's Blue Ribbon Committee. We're going to talk a little bit about the Mayor's Blue Ribbon Committee in just a minute. So would the members of the Blue Ribbon Committee stand, the ones who are here, so I make sure I'm not leaving anybody out, like Rick Clear and Mr. Israel, who joined us all the way from, is it San Antonio or Houston? San Antonio, Texas. So used to live here in Atlanta and was a big part of the community media scene here, a lot of innovative work with young people. So the good thing about being in this time and age, you don't have to be bound to one specific location in order to participate. So he's been an active member joining us most of the time from San Antonio. Some of the work he's doing, or some of the people who are working with his organization are right here in the Atlanta area. So I think in addition to being here with us tonight, he's going to be able to talk to some of his people in person. So we're glad to have him here. And I certainly want to thank Deacon Curtis, stand-up Deacon Curtis Evans, who is our deacon here at Friendship Baptist Church. Friendship has been here, the oldest African-American congregation in the city of Atlanta. Started in boxcars right across the street, or perhaps right in the area where the Mercedes-Benz Stadium is now, and Spelman and Morehouse and a lot of the AUC colleges and universities were founded and started right here at Friendship Baptist Church. And we've maintained a close relationship with the Atlanta University Center ever since then. So we're grateful and we're thankful to the church for opening this beautiful venue for this community conversation. And then two other people, one you've just met, Councilman Michael Julian Bond. I want to thank him for co-hosting this event tonight, but I want to thank him more than that for being a dedicated public servant. I have a special relationship with Michael, not just because of my relationship with his dad, who was one of the first persons I met when I moved to Atlanta in 1973. He was one of the first persons to reach out to me, and then when I became the executive director of the Community Access Program here in Atlanta, he was one of the first elected officials to support me. But beyond that, he already mentioned that his brother, Councilman James Bond, was instrumental in creating the ordinance that made public access television possible. And man, did he know what he was doing. He researched the issue, and he did such a good job at it that he made sure Atlanta got the biggest program, more funding than any city in the United States. And other cities had to piggyback on what we did in order to get more money. But it was James Bond and the city council and the mayor at the time who made sure that we had this program. Last but not least, I want to acknowledge our mayor, Mayor Andre Dickens. You've met some of his staff, his deputy chief of staff, and you met his communication chief. But Mayor Dickens didn't have to take this on as a task of his own. I mean, he could have passed it down to someone else, but this was something that he took on himself. He called me personally and said, Jabari, I know you're semi-retired, but would you come out of your semi-retirement? By the way, I'm busier now than I've ever been in my life, but you know, when you leave your 9-to-5 job, people think you're semi-retired. But he asked me if I would come and help relaunch this because it meant that much to him. And I said, yeah, I will do it, but only if you will appoint a blue ribbon committee, an esteemed blue ribbon committee who would work with me, and that's what he did. So we'll talk just a little bit briefly about the blue ribbon committee. I'm not going to talk any more about myself. I think that what's important now is to talk about community access. It goes by many names: community television, community media, public access television. But it all means the same. It means primarily a community media program where the community can produce its own television programs. And it's really not about television programs. It's about the community having a voice, a community being able to speak its truth to power, the community's ability to define for itself what's news, what's valuable, what's important, and not necessarily let gatekeepers decide who speaks and who doesn't speak, and not to allow professionals, pundits, to decide what issues are important and what issues are not important. So this is kind of a do-it-yourself television program. And when we say do-it-yourself, we mean do-it-yourself. We don't mean just come into a studio and we'll have a professional crew and we'll produce your programs for you. Ultimately, in its purest sense, community access television means that the community is in control of every aspect of the production, from the program content to the operation of the equipment, lighting, sound, the cameras, you name it. But every aspect of it, they are directing the programs. They're learning to become directors. They're editing the programs. And in its purest form, community access television encourages a community to control the program from the beginning to the end. Now there's different combinations of that can work out. I mean, you could have a group of community volunteers that will volunteer to crew in a community access studio, and they can operate the equipment, and then the community can focus more on the content, the program concepts. But you'll have a crew there, and it's generally a volunteer crew. We don't really pay a lot of money for a crew to come in and crew for community producers. But we've seen that happen, and that's worked well too, particularly with senior citizens and community groups who want to be more in control of the content, but don't necessarily want to learn every piece of equipment. So it can be all the way from the community controlling everything, to the community controlling the content, to a community crew that's volunteering to work work hours in the studio to help the community make this real. So just talk a little bit about the brief history of the program. I've pretty much gone over that. What is public access television? And I'm not sure if those of you in the back can see, but I've pretty much gone over the first bullet. I've pretty much gone over the second bullet. Community animation. Let me just say just a little bit about that. What does that really mean? I mean, every community has a personality. Every community is unique. Every neighborhood is unique, particularly in Atlanta. Atlanta is a city that's built around neighborhoods. And at its best, public access television can animate these neighborhoods, can bring these neighborhoods to life by allowing a platform where people can come and talk about the values of the community, the successes of these neighborhoods, the history of these neighborhoods, the narrative of family, and so on and so forth, in a way that brings a neighborhood's history to life and allows it to live on and on and on. Because one thing we know about the internet, and it was the same thing about cable television before, once it's on tape or once it's digitized, it's out there forever. Once it's online, it's kind of out there forever. So it kind of gives it a life that will live beyond our physical life. And I think I've covered most of the other items on this list. Just a little history. Believe it or not, you would say, well, Jabari, how could somebody, when they're 29 years old, look like that, and then end up looking like the way you look now, with almost no hair, and not able to grow? Your hair is not black, your beard is not black, and well, that was me the very first day on the job. I never forget it because Michael Bond's brother, Michael, you want to hear this. Michael Bond's brother, James Bond, was so into this and was so skeptical that the cable company was going to renege on its commitments to providing this kind of service for the Atlanta, that they specified everything. So they specified that they had to hire an executive director, and that executive director had to make no less than $20,000. So guess what they hired me? Guess how much I made when I was first starting? $20,000. $20,000. It was down to, it's that specific. X number of pieces of equipment, X number of studios. All of this stuff was laid out. When I started, it was all on paper. It was just a concept. So we had to build it into reality. But the framework for what this program was supposed to look like was there. In 1979, 1980, and then 1986 is when I left for the first time and helped set up People TV. And People TV was an important community medium in this city that operated from 1986, when I set it up. And by the way, I left and became a city council member after then, no doubt due to the visibility and work I did as a community access executive director. But People TV came into existence and operated continuously all the way up to 2023, a little over a year ago.
In between then, I came back to work for the city after leaving city council to run the mayor's office of community technology, which was relevant to this, but a little bit different than this. And then in June of 2023, the contract with People TV was canceled. And I don't know all of the history or the whys, but I'm here to move us forward, not to go backwards. But that contract is canceled in 2023. There have been some bumps along the road even before then. And then in June the 5th, 2023, the Community Access Channel, which had operated since 1980, went black. And that's where we find ourselves today. I think the city, I know the city, in an effort to get the Community Access Channel and program up and running, did an RFP. That RFP was canceled at a certain point. There was no bidder that was awarded. And I don't know, nobody asked me about going an RFP route, but I don't know any community access program in the country that goes an RFP route. I mean, it's like a specialized architectural service where you can qualify a group of folks who are capable of doing it, but you don't, you're not buying lumber or anything like that. But I'm not here to criticize what they did back then, but it certainly would suggest that with my knowledge of how it's done, the state of the art, and having done it and having been part of the history of it, I'm probably not going to be recommending an RFP route this time around, but we'll see because we haven't made final recommendations yet. But it's rarely done. The consultant before me said it's not the way you go about doing it. I'm saying that's not the way you go about doing it. And I don't think we could bring any expert anywhere in the United States that would suggest that that is a best practice. Now, how we do it and how we make sure it's open and fair and accessible, we're going to talk about that a little bit tonight. And I welcome your comments. Speaking of that Southwest studio, I think that's a photograph of a program being produced in the Southwest studio over on Camden Road, where the old Pizza Hut was. But this is what it was back then: 2 channels, 3 education channels, 4 government channels, 1 lease channel, 1 local channel, and 5 neighborhood-based studios. And this is an original poster from our opening of our 5th studio, and we know that when that was April 7th, 1983. And believe it or not, that big head in the middle is my head. Everybody in there is an actual real person within that circle of producers and staff people and community people, but that big head on the left side, that's actually my head. And I'm looking at other folks who are on our staff, some of whom are not alive now. Now, we mentioned that when the mayor asked me to help relaunch it, I said I'd do it, but we need a blue ribbon committee to work with me. So the mayor appointed and launched the Blue Ribbon Committee on July 24th, 2024, this year. And the objectives of this Blue Ribbon Committee, number 1, was to bring the channel back online. First and foremost, bring the channel back online. Number 2, identify makerspace for a transitional period, and makerspace meaning studio production space where producers and others could go in and produce programs. Create a transitional plan for the operations, recommend a permanent operator of the Access program, and we'll talk about that in a minute, and then recommend a budget. All of those are pretty tall orders, and all of those are areas where there needs to be plenty of dialogue with the community, but also with the city council and with the mayor's office. But that's the sort of work plan and the objectives of the Mayor's Blue Ribbon Committee. We have a schedule, and some folks have tried to get us off schedule, and I won't let anybody get us off schedule. We're going to meet our schedule, and launched on the 24th. We even got this meeting up there. We've had other community meetings, but they're in the past, but this one on the 17th. October the 19th is not the date that we're going, may have been the date that we were, but we're not briefing the Utilities Committee. I think that's been moved to November the 12th. And then November the 13th will be another Blue Ribbon Committee where there'll be some limited community participation, but we're at the point now where we are finalizing our recommendations, so this will be an opportunity for the community to speak before we actually finalize our recommendations. Relaunching the channel November 1st, and we're working hard to make that happen. That's a target. May not happen exactly on November 1st, but that's a target, and we're working hard for that. And I'm gonna let Mr. James Pound, who is the broadcast engineer, come up just in 1 second and talk a little bit about how we're going to do that, how that's going to work, how the community can get engaged and involved with this immediately. And then the makerspace, again, target date, probably won't be able to get it done on the 15th. Allison can tell you, I'm pushing the city. We've got to get all of the details of that worked out, because the next time we come to the community or city council, we got to have a hard date. So we got to work all those details out, and then they'll brief in the mayor's office and probably the city council around the same time in early December. So that's a whole lot to do between now and December, but we're going to get it done. So let's ask James Pound to come up and talk just a minute about, he's a broadcast engineer, so he's going to talk to us in English, but he's a broadcast engineer, so if he throws a few engineer concepts out there, we'll look at him funny, but we'll know what he's talking about.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Smama. So I'll just describe the solution a little bit, and then if there's any questions, out here or later. So for Channel 24, we had the challenge of how to receive content and how to play it out and how to spend the least amount of money and get the most value for the dollars that the city and the community is investing. So we found a provider, a vendor who could play out from the cloud. And it turns out that works really well for the community, because we don't want folks to have to bring tapes down to City Hall or to Comcast. They're going to be able to upload your content directly to the cloud, just like you would upload a file to Dropbox or Google or YouTube. We'll be able to do that. So from there, it will be checked for, to make sure it's going to play out on the air, and then our Channel 24 staff, which hopefully a lot of these processes will be automated, but there'll be a scheduling process to get your content, registered, scheduled, and have some repeated playouts until the policy is expired. So maybe four times a week. That's yet to be determined. But it'll play out from the cloud. There'll be a signal coming from the cloud to Atlanta City Hall, where we have our broadcast facilities. It'll hop over to Comcast, where we already have a connection directly to Comcast. And it will then be available to be, the content will be viewed at home. So all the way after the upload to the place out from the cloud, down to City Hall and to the community. We're working on a website so that we can register content creators and then register the programs, and so folks will be able to see the status of that their program's been received and scheduled. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell. If there's any questions, maybe I didn't cover something clearly, but I'm here now, or if you want to talk to me later after the meeting. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you mentioned uploading, so you're expecting people who are producing to upload to this cloud. I know sometimes uploading can require a lot of bandwidth that people may not have access to. Is there another option that you all, or is there an option that people can utilize to be able to upload content?
So that's a good question. So as you alluded to, the first option would be if they have internet connectivity, they can upload just like you watch a program on YouTube. You can also send one. So there's that. And we're making lists of features that ideas that folks bring us in these meetings and other times. So it's not going to have maybe every single feature day one, but following on rapidly, we're going to be adding features. So we may need the ability to, I think in the makerspace, I think that's going to have internet connectivity as well.
Yeah, I think in the makerspace, will be we do have a digital divide, ain't no doubt about that. And even people who have bandwidth sometimes don't have enough. But there will be public places where you can go with more bandwidth. During the Mayor's Community Technology Initiative that we created in 2000, we utilized libraries and recreation centers. We had T1 lines that went right in there, so that was adequate and enough. So there will be public facilities, even maybe closer to where people live than the makerspace, that we can direct people to go there as well, with instructions as how to upload. But that is an issue that we're working on. We're aware of it, and I'm glad you brought it to our attention, because everyone will not be able to make that work. If you don't have a computer, if you don't have the internet, you'll have to rely on a public space, or if you are still unfamiliar with when we were doing the community technology, we had 25 cyber centers, community technology centers set up. And we were training, people from kids to seniors, and many seniors had never operated a mouse before. They thought they would break the mouse. They really didn't know how to navigate, just the basic stuff that we take for granted. So if you're really going to have community access and make it real, you have got to take all of those kind of things into consideration. Just a couple other things, and then we're going to be able to open it up for more dialogue. That's a picture of the actual makerspace that I mentioned. Just told by our communication director that because of the upfitting and the constructions that will need to take place, it's probably going to be after the new year before we can get in there. But it looks like that now, and we're not planning to do any extensive renovations, but we're going to have to move those cabinets, and we're going to have to put up walls and soundproof those as best we can. So from what we have to do, it's going to take some time with the construction If we could just walk in there right now, the way it is, we could do it tomorrow, but there's going to need to be some upfitting there. This is fairly close to where the former public access studio was on 14th Street. Once we work out all the details, we'll come back with a more firm date, but we're committed to that location. And the recommendation will be into the mayor and the city council before the 14th of December. But it's not like you give recommendations to the city one day and the next day this new entity is up and running and operating. So there's going to need to be a transitional period. And that's one thing I've talked to you all about in my briefing to you. There needs to be a transitional period. So what I am going to propose is that they tolerate me a little bit longer during this transition period. And, but we also put together a team that's more focused on operations. So there will be representatives from the Blue Ribbon Committee. There will be dedicated community leaders who care about this. There can be a representative from Mr. Knutson's organization, the Producers Association, and we want to have them involved so we have the continuity. We want to be able to hire, at least on an interim basis, some staff, and we want to have some volunteers. But the transitional period is probably going to be a 6 to 12 month period where we're ironing out all of the details. We know ultimately who that or what that entity is going to be that's going to operate it, but we are making sure that when we hand it off, that the contract is clear, the expectations are clear, the principles are clear, that it's legally sound, all of that. And we're not going to rush to do that because I give for recommendations in December. We're going to make sure that by the time this new entity takes it over, that everything, all the I's are dotted, all the T's are crossed, and then it'll be a clean handoff at a certain point. So the city has committed to allowing us to stay in the makerspace for up to 12 months. And Councilman Bond, if we needed to stay the 13th month, I hope y'all would give us another month. They've committed to helping us get the channel up and running, and I know you're happy to hear that. So that's going to happen. They are graciously utilizing the city's resources, purchasing and all that to make sure we get equipment. And so the city is just being a really, really good partner now. And hopefully those who were giving the city a hard time for things that happened in the past are seeing now that we want to be good partners because we want this to happen. We want it to happen the right way. So I really appreciate the equipment purchasing, the legal advice we're getting, the procurement advice we're getting, the HR advice we're getting, support from communications, support from the mayor's office. And this will be the way that it will operate through the period of time where it's handed off to the ultimate entity. We're going to have Q&A in just about 2 or 3 minutes, so all your questions, hold on to them, and I'll answer all of them before we leave. We have to be out of here at the latest at 7:30, so it's 10 minutes to 7 now, so I'm going to make sure to take your questions in just a couple minutes, and then we'll shut down around 7:15 or so to make sure that we are indeed out of here by 7:30. I know this church, I mean, they're strict on that, so the lights will go out at 7:29, we don't want to be fumbling around in the dark. The task of the transition team is to serve as sort of an operating entity during this interim period, promulgate rules for operation and programming, get some fundraising going, make sure we have tremendous outreach and engagement, and start talking about oversight and what the oversight structure needs to be. Because when the entity that's ultimately going to operate Access, we're not just going to give them this resource and the finance and then walk away from it. I mean, we need to make sure that there's also an entity that will have oversight that will ensure that it's operating the way we intended it for it to operate when we handed it over. No problems. And if there are problems, then we work together on resolving those problems in good faith. Funding is sticky, and I won't make any funding commitments tonight, but only to say, and I think the mayor's office is aware of that because we've had conversations, that the amount of funding that was going into the operations was probably not sufficient to have the kind of operation that the city deserves. So I'm going to look at that and work with the city council, work with the mayor to see what we'll be able to do. There are a number of ways to do it. There's probably going to have to be more of a direct allocation, but the city can help us also in terms of in-kind contribution. Was there anyone with People TV here tonight? Anyone who actually worked either on the board of People TV? Do you remember what you were paying for rent? Was it something like $7,000 to $8,000 a month?
It was, at the end, it was in excess of 10,000.
In access, yeah. So that's $120,000 of money that should have been going into programming, going to rent. That's a very high, it's a very expensive area, Midtown on 14th Street. So let's just take, for example, if the city was to provide us in-kind space for a longer period than the year, that's like cash money. That's $100,000 right there, that by providing the in-kind space. The city also has service grants. I know the mayor has raised a lot of money for his Year of the Youth, and if you have a state-of-the-art after-school youth podcast program that's going to teach high school students how to do podcasts and vodcasts and videocasts, why wouldn't youth money be put toward that? And that's different than franchise fee money. That's money that, in some cases, has been donated to the city, but ought to be available for youth development and television skills and all of these things that we're talking about this program can be about. Hopefully we'll be able to tap into certain types of funding that's there anyhow and available for youth, and some of it may be income eligible, and some of it may not be income eligible. I know workforce development funding is income eligible, but we have a lot of young people in our city, and we have a lot of working people in our city who fall under the guidelines where the workforce development, they don't call it workforce development anymore, but we used to call it that, and everybody knows what we're talking about. And then there are targeted grants for certain areas of the city, Vine City, English Avenue, Dixie Hills. There are broadband opportunity grants that might do something about the digital divide issue we were talking about, if we can help connect more people. And then there's corporate responsibility grants. I mean, Comcast itself has corporate responsibility grants. So in addition to franchise fee, we should be accessing some of the corporate money that they give anyhow for being a good corporate citizen. So the idea that Comcast should only be giving the city a franchise fee, and then the money that that's allocated for public access is money that cable subscribers pay anyhow because it's itemized on the bill. What about your corporate responsibility? You know, so I think there's a good chance that not only Comcast, but all these technology companies, all of these media technology companies, all these high technology companies, all these digital, the Googles, the Microsofts, all of these companies ought to want to be good citizens. And if we have a good product and a good program, the Arthur Blank Foundation knows that some kids in the area he cares about around the stadium are going to be involved in these programs. They ought to step up and put some money on the table. So I'm not as worried about the funding as some folks are. I mean, some folks can knock themselves out over this issue. I think if we got a product and a program that's really, really good, that the funding is going to be available and the funding is going to be there. So that's kind of my, we'll speak more specifically about it in the proposal, but it's kind of my attitude about it. Remember, when fundraising is getting the community to believe in you, the leadership, they're not going to fund you if they don't believe in you. They don't. So it's a really, it's kind of a referendum on leadership and the people involved. And that's why this new time around, we need to surround this new program with diverse leaders, but leaders who the community respects, because fundraising is a referendum on leadership. They got plenty of money. They got so much money in Atlanta from the corporate technology, communication, film, you name it. There's so much money here. Let's give them a good project, a good program, and let's get everybody involved. Community access is not just for the most eager community producers. When you start bringing the whole community in, when you start serving all of the Atlanta public school kids, when you start letting seniors come in and the neighborhood planning unit and the civic associations, when you get them involved in your community access program, then you got the whole community involved. Not just a specialized group, a small group, you got the whole community involved. And I think that's when you have the best chance of getting community support. Okay, so now it's time for us to have a dialogue. Any questions, comments, or suggestions? I'm going to ask you to help, Shannara, would you help please with the mic? This one here. So I'm not going to ask people to line up, but if you do have, I'm going to need you, Shannara, to go to please bring the mic back to these folks. I'm going to let her do her Oprah Winfrey type thing, and we're going to let the community ask any question. If I can't answer it, I'm going to pitch to Councilman Michael Bond, and he's going to give you all the answers.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I was telling this young lady I have a loud voice, but I feel like I have to quiet it down with the microphone. Good evening. Hope everyone is having a blessed one. Sorry, my little baby's probably going to interrupt a couple of times. But I do have two questions, and I'm sure I have plenty more, but these are my first two. The procurement process to start, or I guess to be involved in public television, what does that look like? Can you elaborate on what the process fully entails? And I think the question that's following that initial question kind of goes hand in hand. Is there some form of guideline or quality assurance to ensure that not, I mean, I know it's public TV, but I can imagine there's going to be a diverse submission. So how are you going to keep quality control to ensure that we're having things that are fitting the guidelines of the mission statement rather than just anything and everything, and TikTok and YouTube TV and all of the to be independent films, depending, I don't know the guidelines, what your vision is.
The procurement process that we're utilizing now is the City of Atlanta's procurement process. It's the same process they go through to purchase anything.
She's talking about programs.
I'm talking program specific.
All right.
So like how does a director or producer say, hey, I have an animated short film that's with hopes to inspire young people to believe in themselves? Do I fit the guideline to
Yes.
submit it, one, and two, well, what does the process entail? Do I need to pay a submission? Do I need to, what does it mean to be a target?
Okay. Procurement involves money, so you know that. So how you acquire programming, there's no money involved. So I would never think that procurement meant programming, but that's okay. If what you mean, maybe I should answer the second part first, because I think that might be helpful. There are program standards in the franchise agreement that will be articulated and will be noted on a website that we're going to drive people to, that will speak to the terms of how you get channel access, how do you get your program on the channel, what are the minimum standards, etc. Now, as it relates to content, I will say this, and it may not make a lot of sense now, but it will later. One of the things that makes community access is that the content and the subject matter, except for a few exceptions, should be in the hands of the community producer himself or herself. So there's not going to be a central committee that's going to be censoring program content or even saying that certain program content is more valuable or desirable. I wanted to do that as a former executive director. I had to take programming from the Klan. I had to take programming from the Atlanta College of the Arts, which kind of dabbed in what seemed to me like nudity and stuff like that, but it was art. It was video art. And I couldn't use my own standards to say that's unacceptable. So the content, with the exception of this age-old prohibition, which is called LOAF, lottery, advertising, defamation, things like fundraising, those are things that you can't do. But the subject matter is really in the hands of the producer. Now, how are we going to get the word out and market the idea to the community that you can have access to channel time with minimum interference from the operators of this channel? We're going to use a lot of social media to do this. We're going to work with the Producers Association, which has a list of former producers, to get the word out. The city has its own social media sites, and we're also going to use the channel, which is up and running, both the channel on cable channel 24 on Comcast, as well as, I'm sure, a mirror YouTube channel that will be available. So we're going to use all these means. Right now, the Blue Ribbon Committee has a community outreach and engagement subcommittee, and they're working just on that very idea. And I don't know if anyone from that committee is here now, but if anyone here is interested in drilling down in more detail on those kind of issues, you need to attend the next Community Outreach and Engagement Committee. That's going to be the committee that will bring forth the recommendations. Any other points? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so my name is Anna Gruber-Brumberg. I'm an elected official in Los Angeles, and I'm the mother of Natalie, whose father is legendary filmmaker Bill Duke, who just moved to Atlanta, and that he would be one of the people who would love to have a how do you call that, an interview show on your network. And we would love to assist you with sponsorship, at least me, because when you're in government, a lot of the private sector and CEOs from overseas call you because they want to come and invest and create jobs. And so So that would be the process. We would need to know by which process somebody like Mr. Duke would come to you and say, I want to do an interview show, let's say an hour a week or whatever. How is that going to play out?
Well, I think Mr. Duke, I'd like to speak with him even before the channel's up and running, because
She's the president of this
so definitely want to speak with him and get his involvement and his input and his support early and up front. I operated community access for 6 years. In the very beginning, we had hundreds of programming and thousands of people involved. Once the word gets out that there is an outlet that is available, there's a medium that's available that is for the community to be able to telecast its programs through word of mouth, and now we didn't have social media back then, but we have social media. The word gets around quickly. I don't think our issue is going to be getting the word out. I think the issue is going to be an overwhelming response that puts us in a position of figuring out how can we fairly allocate channel time. Because we did have that problem initially where there were more people who had programs that they wanted to telecast than we had time for. So we had to come up with procedures and policies and all of that. We'll pull all that out and take a look at all of that, as well as look at the way People TV operated. But what we need to do now with this transition committee that I talked about is to come up with the best practices of how we're going to do it now. And those are the things that we're going to work out in that transitional period before we hand off to the permanent entity. But I have my card here. James, would you please bring, and have Mr. Dukes contact me directly, and I'd love to talk to him. Any other questions or comments? Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Jay Jackson, and
Oh, yes.
yeah,
Jabari.
absolutely, Jabari.
Another Jabari.
Absolutely. I have a question. So, you talked about procurement and equipment that y'all are going to be purchasing that's going to go into the makerspace. When the entity that comes on board to manage this permanently, is that equipment going to go with that contract to that entity, or is that part of the process that you all have in mind?
That's the plan. That's the plan. I mean, there's no way to look at it other than the city is a permanent partner in all of this. So I don't think you're going to have to deal with state gratuity clauses, that has some pretty strong prohibitions of this, like giving away city assets. I mean, this is a fund set up for this purpose. So although the city is doing the purchasing and taking control of the facilities and the equipment initially, the plan will be to hand all this over to the ultimate permanent entity. And we're not purchasing everything we need or everything we know we're going to want to purchase, but we are purchasing enough for us to get started. And then hopefully we get some seasoned producers like Mr. Knudsen here who bring in his camera, and others will bring in their equipment. I've got equipment that I'll donate. I mean, there'll be other equipment. We've already got individuals who have agreed to donate. All of this will be ultimately an asset for the community that the permanent operator will have. And the city's Channel 26, and they do a pretty good job, has helped us identify, along with the engineer and along with members of the technology committee. And by the way, the technology committee is still meeting and active, so if anyone still wants to get involved, is the subcommittee level that we would want you to get involved. We've got the chairman of the technology subcommittee right here, Mr. Rick Clear, so you can just go see him afterwards and tell him you want to get involved. Next.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Corey Sanders, I go by the name of Tallboy. I'm big into the tech space, and I think one of the biggest things that I'm asking, or I would like to know, is one, what are the immediate steps that you're looking for? And two, do you plan on using any Georgia-based companies that provide these services, or are you just saying, I'm just going to go to the bigger companies such as the Sonys, the Canons, or whatever other companies that are outside of Georgia-based companies? Are you planning to use any of the Georgia-based companies that specialize in bringing in the tech accessories that's needed to be able to make this project work? And then what are your immediate needs or immediate steps after we walk out of this room?
That is a good question. We are not hiring that many professional companies to do the kinds of things that I think you are anticipating that we're going to be doing. The city has a information system, a big, large information systems operation. The city has a broadcast engineer. They operate a station. And part of the in-kind contribution that this program is going to get is utilizing the city's resources to get this channel up and running and to get this makerspace up and running. We do not anticipate hiring a professional company to do this. Now, if there's a specific service that you have in mind that you think we should outsource or we should procure, let me know, and then I can answer that question specifically. But getting the studio and the makerspace up and running, it's going to be city resources that will do that. Getting the channel up and running, there's going to be city's resources that will do this. This Playbox system that he talks about is proprietary, and if there's, I don't know if that's local or not. I'm not sure where Playbox is out of. Where's Playbox out of, by the way?
I think they're on the east and west coast.
Well, so that would have been one that we could procure that if there's a local counterpart, but I'm not sure that there is. Equipment purchasing is done under an open PO or whatever process the city uses to purchase its equipment. If you are a equipment provider and you're local or you're minority or you're small business, let's talk to the city right now about those services. We'd be more than glad to get you on the list and look at the possibility of utilizing you. So I got to know specifically what we're talking about in order to answer that specifically. Otherwise, I need to be general because I'm not precise. It's not specific what I think you're talking about. But I can tell you this, that the city of Atlanta not only has a strong local business and minority and female business enterprise program, which is the envy of the nation. So any purchasing and procurement that's done under the city is going to utilize that policy. We also have a first source jobs policy of jobs that are created out of contracts. Local Atlantans have first choice at that. I understand that because that's a bill. That's one of the bills that I created as a city council member. Yes.
Sir, you asked the second question. You didn't answer the first question.
What's the second question?
The first question was, what were your immediate needs, or what are the immediate steps that as we leave this meeting here? Or what are the immediate needs, or what are the next steps once we walk out of this meeting?
I gave you a schedule of the objectives of the Blue Ribbon Committee. We're going to follow that schedule. Our first need and our first priority is to get the channel up and running. And in terms of what do I need from you to get the channel up and running, I don't need anything because that's technical. I don't need anything from the community in terms of getting the channel up and running. We're going to get that channel up and running for the community, and once we get it up and running, then the community will be able to access it. Second thing I said we were going to do is we're going to open up the maker space. So we're working on getting that work upfitted.
design, outfitted, etc. All that's being done in-house. We don't need the community to do anything there. Just benefit from it once we get it done. Once we get it done. Third thing I said, the need is, and what we're going to do is we're going to put together a transition committee that's going to be an operating committee. It's going to operate from 6 to 12 months. Anybody interested in serving in that capacity, you need to let us know. You need to let us know right now. I didn't say this, but there's a fourth thing that you can do, and that is, since the channel is going to be up and operating soon, won't meet the November target date, but it's going to be soon, we need to start accumulating programs. So if you have programs, and you want these programs to be transmitted on that channel, then you need to let us know. You can get these programs together, getting ready. That would be something that you can do now. And all of this stuff is working together at the same time is enormously complex. It's not simple. Can't just snap your finger and have it happen. But we're working on all of it. We're working on all of it together. And those are the 4 immediate objectives. And what you can do if you are a program producer is to get your programs ready to be telecast. If you are a production person and you want to produce a program through the studio, and you want to help us on a volunteer basis get the studio up and running, we welcome that as well. We'll be working with James Pound in that capacity. Yes?
Last question.
My name is Miles Avery, and I'm a multimedia content creator, and I'm also working in broadcast IT as an operations engineer. I was just curious on, you kind of touched on it, what you just said, but how did I get involved? Just, helping out, getting things running or volunteering, whether it's, helping people dealing with technology, like helping them upload their videos, or, helping people understand how to use cameras or content that might be in the studios. Really just anywhere, not only getting involved, but also Atlanta has a lot of young content creators as well. So I feel like if we, showcase and not just market to the younger crowd, but I'm just curious, I guess, how can I stay connected, or how can I, be an asset?
The committee that's working on community outreach and engagement are also working on a social media campaign that's going to start before the channel starts and before the makerspace is ready. So one of the things you can do is get involved with that committee to start talking about how we're going to market. In fact, Mr. Israel here is on that committee, and I'm going to let him speak a little bit about what they're doing. They're telling me we got to be out of here in about 10 minutes, so.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon or evening, everyone. To your question, we actually are, like Dr. Samama said, we are creating the social media, but we're also going to be in the community as well. So we'll probably host some type of events where we can just learn how we can assist the community and who wants to be a partner of what we're doing on a volunteer basis. So for instance, Pizza Findura is a pizza restaurant in Little Five Points. That's kind of where we were intending on having an open space, open forum, where people like yourself can learn what we're doing, be a partner of what we're doing, and then also amplify the message. So, also, if you're interested, we can exchange information as well.
So all of you who are here who are interested in getting involved and getting engaged now, if it's technology, Rick, just stand up for a second, raise your hand. All right, Corey, Rick, they know each other. If it's the youth involvement, the youth engagement, it's Mr. Israel right here. Raise your hand again. If it's working with helping to get the channel up and running and the makerspace design, is James. Raise your hand. Stand. Okay? So go see those individuals
if you want to get involved. Now, I'm going to close it off now. If I don't see any other hands, I'm going to close it off. I'm going to, Councilman Bond, do you have any closing remarks that you'd like to make, or you just want to thank